Hello and welcome to everyone to another episode of Gupshup with Gil. Today we have someone who's very well known in the cricketing circles, especially among those circles where people are obsessed about numbers, where they want all pieces of data, where you have fanatics who know about an each and every piece of that data. And today our guest today is also someone who's worked with Cricinfo, and his prowess with data and numbers is identified not only by the fans but also by a lot of teams who play T20, be it national teams or even be it franchisees. Today, I have with me Gaurav Sundaraman of Cricinfo, who's worked with the World Cup winning West Indies side in 2016, and he's also worked with the India side and two or three IPL teams as well. Welcome, Gaurav. Welcome to Gupshup with Gil.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure.
Gaurav, since you've worked with teams in the auction setup, and auction is one thing which actually drives people mad. We see so many people, having mock auctions, fans discussing what are the various possibilities. They even go and discuss about what should be the right price to get a player. And these are people who, put in so much of effort when there aren't any stakes involved for them. They can get it wrong while making a mock auction team, but for people like you who are a part of the process, who do so much of scouting, how difficult or easy can it be to nail the process of the IPL auction? Just walk us through that process.
Well, the auction itself has evolved a lot over the last 13, 14 years, right? Ever since the start of the IPL. Auction was completely new in the scheme of things when it came to sports. Usually, most leagues have the system of drafts, which is very common, used across all sports in the world, and uh, people like that, but it never came as close to the interest of an IPL auction. I think that kind of it was revolutionary in a sense. Even now, if you actually look, there are a lot of people who are more excited to watch an IPL auction than actually watch the IPL itself. The kind of numbers the auction gets, both in broadcast and digital, is extremely high. It paves way for a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. Like you rightly said, everybody wants a particular player in the team, and we've seen franchises come up with so many campaigns with pre-auction about what fans need, and in fact we have now reached a certain stage where you're kind of people who are within the industry, people who understand the dynamics, kind of can even predict which team is going for which player. So auction has really enhanced the interest of the league, because it's special, you for one, you get a lot of heroes, you have a lot of small time players making a lot of money, very good human stories for that. Secondly, there's a lot of intelligence, tactics and strategies. People like me who are outside of who are not cricketers, who have not played the game, can actually have some kind of influence, which was good which is good, which was not possible say 10 years back, right? Because the kind of the way you need to think, etc. And also, the auction has changed, has evolved. I'm sure you, as a person following it regularly, you'll know teams have become a lot smarter. Teams have become more even. A good auction for most teams makes the season even more exciting. So if you notice from 2016 till 20, even the latest season, the teams are very well balanced, and it goes on towards the last few days, last day, in fact, last match over the last 3, 4 seasons, which shows that all teams are smart. All teams have picked a very balanced squad. Yes, there are obviously going to be one or two slightly stronger teams, but because people have become smart, the kind of balance, the equality has become a lot better than what it was way back in 2008 when we saw a gulf of difference between, say, an RCB and Deccan versus the other teams. Even though that was more about teams learning, but we could see the gulf constantly reducing. We've started seeing teams being smarter and not picking unnecessarily. Remember, there was one season where a particular team picked like almost 8, 9 fast bowlers in their lineup. Now people know exactly what they need, where to focus on, which part of your team you need to focus on, and a lot of work goes behind it. A lot of recruitment happens a lot of structures there. So, well, yeah. So auction dynamics is amazing. I've been lucky to be part of it as well as work on it for at least 4 years. And from the time I stopped working on auctions till today itself, there's been a sea of change. So yeah, it's just getting better and better as the years go, Gulkiran.
You mentioned a very good point about the gulf being reducing between the last two teams and the first two teams. If I remember correctly, my memory might be slightly hazy over here, but in 2008, I think Deccan Chargers won only 2 games out of 14, and probably RCB won 4. And in the 2019 IPL, the gulf between the last team, which was the RCB, I think they had 11 points, and the next two teams was just 1 point. And we had someone like SRH qualify with 12 points. So that is how close that it's become. Also, like you mentioned, because people have become smarter, they've become more more research. The buys have become more research oriented. You see that there's a certain kind of uh, irrelevance attached to the big name. People are much more happy to pay more for someone like a Shah Rukh Khan, who I think was bought for around 4.5 to 5 crores, than for Steven Smith, who was bought for 2.2 crores. In probably 5-6 years ago, we wouldn't have seen this because the name would have taken precedence. So you're completely spot on about it. And I think that also it's something which even the fans have started to accept, because earlier fans would have been, how can you do this? But now they also understand why a Shah Rukh Khan batting at number 6-7 is far more important, because he's also an Indian player, than a Steven Smith who's batting at number 3 and is an overseas player. So like you said, there's been a sea change in terms of mentality and in thinking, and both the fans, I think, and the teams have benefited from it. Now this brings me to my next question, because you mentioned how auction is so important, that it can set up the base for not only 1 year, it can actually set up the base for 3 years, because we also have retentions and the RTM that comes into play. How important are these models? Because we see there's a lot of study that keeps happening. Teams and companies try to come up with models. As someone who's worked in this field, I want to understand from you, how relevant and how important can these models be, or and how much can they account for? Can they also account for a team playing smart, something like what RCB was doing in 2018 auction, where they kept bidding for Krunal Pandya because they knew that Mumbai Indians will go for him, because he was the man of the match in the last year's IPL final, and he had a great season for them, and they were unable to retain him. So it was kind of a given that they would RTM him. So do these auction models account for these factors as well?
It's a good question. Just for our viewers, let me just break a myth, or let me just try to explain what really happened. So obviously when the auction started, you didn't have that much data, and things were slowly building up. Maybe around 2014, 2015, we had about 5-6 seasons of data, and uh, there were more leagues coming across the world. So slowly people started identifying talent based on certain leagues. Remember, there were times when the leading run scorer in Big Bash used to just get picked, leading wicket taker in a Ram Slam used to just get picked. So it was pretty basic, and because people didn't have that much information, people were still trying to figure out, and a lot of people from the external world were not part of decision making. Now, slowly, when people realize there's a market, and there is an interest, and franchises are also evolving, people want to be ahead of the curve. There are certain franchises, like say a Kolkata Knight Riders or the Rajasthan Royals and a Mumbai Indians, for example, who believe strongly in leveraging technology, using data, and being state of the art. Forget whether they use numbers or not. I'm just talking generally from a perspective of making sure that you're technologically advanced and you're using the best set of metrics for the best ever league in the country, and obviously one of the topmost leagues in the world. So you want to be part of that ecosystem. For that, you need to leverage certain things. So a lot of teams have tried working with a lot of companies, external companies, which are working with these kind of data models, auction related softwares. Early on, again, I'm going back to the time when I was deeply involved, the softwares were not actually scientific in nature. The auction software was just a software which helps you pick a player. It just arranges instead of doing it in Excel, you're doing it in a software. They were just mimicking an Excel to a software. It had no intelligence. It didn't tell you about how good a player is likely to be. A lot of people were selling softwares like that. So it took some time. So first teams used to buy that. Then they realized that the model is the software is not very intelligent. The requirement became to have intelligent softwares where, like you asked, whether a model would be able to give a score for a particular batter. Whether the model will be likely to predict if a player is likely to perform based on certain variables, etc. Then we had a lot of, I work with college graduates, I work with big institutions which have come up with such models. But the problem, Gurkirat, is that how many ever models you do, whichever company you engage, it's very hard to come up with an accurate solution because of the dynamics of the game, because of the dynamics of the auction, and the lack of faith on, say, certain fringe players. You still want to go behind the bigger names because you are comfortable. There's a lot of other aspects in terms of gelling with the team, the culture aspect, etc., which an auction model can never predict. And like, I'm sure you will also agree with me on this, that no auction model can ever predict that, hey, you have to pay 15 crores for Glenn Maxwell, 16 crores for Yuvraj Singh, or 17 crores for Chris Morris, or Pat Cummins, 15 crores. All these high picks which you have seen over the last few auctions, no model can predict, because mathematically a model will not tell you that, hey, a lot of teams are going to go for this, you can afford to go for so much. No, because models are supposed to be intelligent in terms of, and take out the emotional quotient, everything. It will purely go on numbers. And a Maxwell, for example, does not have enough numbers to show, even mathematically, to show that you have to pick him. Which is why these models are good to have. It's a good learning curve for franchises. It's good for owners, first of all, to be involved in decision making and understand these models. I know that a lot of franchises have hired a few people and use it, but to the extent they actually implement it in the auction is going to be very little. So what happens currently now is, people do have these companies. Even a team like CSK have hired a company for doing these models, even though they never use it, because they want to be ready when maybe teams have all started using it, or we have reached a stage where you can actually go and follow a computer program. So we are far away from it, but all teams have it. So all teams are still learning and understanding what a model says. If a model validates someone's perception, it becomes a good model. If a model does not validate the perception, then you start questioning the model. This is the state it is in. But I'm glad that at least people have moved from just Excel sheets and simulation softwares to proper investment on technology and data. Now, like for example, a model will not be able to predict suddenly a change of venue from say India to UAE, right? It's not going to tell. For UAE, it might give the top players in UAE, and then you have to pick and choose. We don't know what other teams require. We can maybe kind of figure that out, but you can't really, a model can't do that. Similarly, take Indian domestic talent, Gurkiran. The number of people who are like shining are very few, and people go by recency bias. People see a lot of videos, and like again, no model with the data we had. Varun Chakravarti had not even played T20s, right? He had played just TNPL, and he had played domestic games. But people went for 7 to 9 crores, if I remember right. So these are things models can't predict. So I think where companies and franchises should invest is to come up with, I would say, options, stuff like an impact model to say that this player has this amount of score over the last 2 years based on certain important variables, which take into account different venues, etc. And as a franchise owner, if I was a franchise owner, I want these options with me. That's it. And the model need not predict anything for me. I would want all these scores. I would want to see how they have performed in particular roles. If I have this information, for which you don't technically need a mathematical model, you need people with strong understanding of the game, people who have watched a lot of cricket over other leagues, which owners don't have time for these days, and try to make some informed decisions, whether he plays the googly well. A model's not going to tell that. But if I watch the game, And if I have the numbers about his record against Googly, that's more than enough for me to make a decision at this point in time.
So let me break it down. What you're essentially saying is that instead of a model giving you what is the right kind of price that a player should go for, it should rather give teams option for the kind of players that they're looking for. Say if you want to if you want to pick a seam bowling all rounder, then these are the options that you have. If you want to pick up a wrist spinner, or then these are the options that you have in terms of a right arm wrist spinner or a left arm wrist spinner. If you're looking for a finisher, if you're looking for a death bowler, then these are the options that you have. And then
So
base
the options I have, Gurkirat, should ideally be um, uh, given to me in a priority order, which is slightly intelligent. That's what I want. That's the kind of model I want. Like, for example, we don't want death over bowling just sorted by averages and strike rates and wickets, right? Because you know that the chances of getting high wickets a lot. Like Dwayne Bravo gets most of his wickets in the death. That's great. But there are other things we need to see. For example, how many variations does he have?
yeah.
That comes by watching video, and that comes by obviously looking at data as well. So that's why I don't want to use the word modeling. It confuses a lot of people. And data modeling is effectively trying to train train a lot of data and come up with a outcome. Like maybe data model can be used if a model can accurately predict how much I should go for a particular player, but we are not there yet.
Also, like you mentioned about Varun Chakravarti, these models also don't account for the relative fitness of players as well. And we saw what happened with Varun Chakravarti even in the 2020 IPL. He was carrying an injury and then he couldn't make it, and it's understandable because he was not into full time cricket anyway. And the other thing that the models will not account for is, like you said, like you also mentioned, the change in venues, or what is at what time or at what orders are players going to come in, because we've seen some franchises have become so smart that if they want to pick a player, they don't bid for him when the name comes up in the first round or the second round. There's another round where franchises given the names of the unsold players and then they get that picked. So I don't think the models can even predict that. And I think
Yes.
someone who's been doing that very smartly is Sunrisers Hyderabad.
Yeah. Spot on. So these are things which will come from experience, come from watching a lot of sport. Like for example, let's take the CPL or even the tournaments in West Indies. Most of the matches are happening in the middle of the night in India. Right? So a lot of people then just look at basic numbers and the big names people know. How do you find that one player who not many people will go for? How do you differentiate from the rest of the pack? That is where the skill comes. That is where I don't think a model can ever bring such names. What How it will help is watching a lot of video and seeing what your team wants, where you're going to play, what specific role. So if you're part of the franchise, you're likely to be aware of that information. I know, and I started looking for those particular things, and then sorting my options in a top 5 or top 10 or whatever, and then go towards the auction and then build on based on whatever you said, based on the order, based on when he or she is coming in the auction, and pick players.
Now, since we are on the subject of auctions, we've had previously people who've been part of the setups, people who've been part of the think tanks and be responsible for auctions. They've come up and said, when a particular buy has gone completely wrong, they've said that it was probably not their choice. It was the choice of the owner or someone above in the management. Now I want to understand from you, how important are the calls of the owners still in the auction process? Because there's another thing which which fans can not understand, is that there's a business side of things as well. You have to buy a particular kind of a player or a certain players because you want to have sponsors on board, you want to have fan loyalty, you want to be able to sell tickets. Because you can have, see, there's no guarantee to win the tournament anyway, regardless of how good team you assemble, but you still want to cover your bases in terms of earning your revenue and being able to get back the money. So how important, or how much of an influence do owners still play in terms of the picks that come at the auction?
So, Gurkirat, obviously, I haven't worked in the last 3-4 years with owners. So, in the current setup, I won't be able to comment much because things have changed a lot. But from whatever I have read and whatever experience I have had, I'll share one story with you. So in the 2015 auction, for the 2015 IPL, we kind of, I was working with RCB, but we were kind of, I think most franchises were sure that Delhi Daredevils would go for an Indian superstar because they didn't have an Indian superstar at that point in time. They had a pretty poor season in 2014 and they needed to up their game. And I think everybody knew
Delhi
that
as a Delhi fan, just want to say they've had a lot of poor seasons, especially between 2012 to
they're slowly
2019.
they're making it up now the last two or
Yeah.
three seasons. So they were poised to actually win the league last in 2021 when there was a break. So let's see what happens. But yeah, so everybody kind of knew. You won't believe it, but most franchises knew that Yuvraj Singh is likely to go to Delhi Daredevils because purely from a fact that they didn't have a strong Indian player, and that is required. You need a good Indian captain and a good Indian player for a lot of purposes, for advertising, marketing, and also for performance on the field, to understand your local players. Not having anybody is not very easy. You need one star player to encourage the youngsters, to manage egos, a lot of things. So we kind of found out that Delhi were missing, and before the auction itself, I was privy to that information that Delhi is likely to go for Yuvraj Singh. So if you're a smart franchise, you try to increase as much of their purse as possible to make sure that they go and get Yuvraj Singh. And that's exactly what Bangalore did. People were surprised that they went above 14 crores for which they had Yuvraj Singh for. But it was very sure that Delhi have to pick, because if you didn't pick Yuvraj Singh, they didn't have any player, Gurkiran. So, and I think in the media we did read about Kings XI Punjab picking Chris Gale pretty late in the auction in 2018 for the base price, and they said that hey, we can. I think it was Sehwag or someone, I don't remember that clearly, who said that we'll use him for marketing purposes, even though he became one of the key players and one of their most successful players. So it's a different thought process. Maybe he told it in jest, but the thing is. From whatever I've spoken to a few IPL franchises currently, owners play a big role. There are some owners who completely leave it to the coach and the captain, and there's some owners who are totally invested in it. And I'm totally okay with both approaches, as long as it's a very mutually respectful relationship. I think it's great. It's good to have an outside perspective. It's good to have an owner's view as well. In case of a team like Chennai, you know, where the captain is so good, the captain bond is so good, you don't want to disrupt that, right? But a new franchise teams which are trying to still come up the ranks, and you will want some owner intervention. And see, at the end of the day, it's, owners are paying the big bucks and they need to get results. And if they don't get results, it's important that they interfere and they add value. So I'm pretty sure you'll have a mix of both. And as long as they have mutual respect for each other, and if the owners are very invested, nothing like it. I know, for example, Mumbai Indians, the owners are very invested and they do a great job. They do an unbelievable job, and that's totally okay. So I think that's fine by me. I think it's important that that balance is there.
Very rightly mentioned and very detailed explanation given as to why the owners can also get involved and why they don't want to be involved, because they sometimes may not be understanding the game enough or may not be watching enough. And as far as Mumbai Indians is concerned, I think everyone who doesn't even follow cricket or the IPL, they know that Mumbai Indians is probably the best run franchise, and the results speak for it. There have been many examples where they arranged a charter flight for Dwayne Bravo to go and play the game for the West Indies, and how they looked after Alzari Joseph when he got injured in the 2019 season. So I think as far as Mumbai Indians and their running is concerned, there are hardly any two questions about it. I yet to come across someone or any account that says that okay, that they don't treat the players well, or what they say as one family, they are that family. So I think that is for perhaps a model that all teams can strive and become. But again, you need some sort of consistency with the results. But We've seen how that may not be the case with someone like Punjab, where coaches keep changing every year and etc. etc. Now, this brings me to the think tank. Uh, how important do you think is diversity in think tanks? Because from what we have seen in the last year, specifically, I'll take the example of Sunrisers Hyderabad. Now, they had Trevor Bayliss, they had Brad Haddon, and they had Tom Moody. Now, all of them come from pretty much the same country, and the new talents or the raw talents that they'll know will only be from the same country, and we sort of get that from the buys as well. If you look at Delhi also, there's Ricky Ponting, there's James Hopes, and then everyone else isn't really that much involved. So how important is the diversity in think tanks in terms of giving you different players from different parts of the world? Now again, we mentioned Mumbai Indians have had Mahela Jayawardene, who's from Sri Lanka. There's James Bond. There was Jonty Rhodes at a point of time. There was Robin Singh. So there are people from different countries. How does this work?
Well, um, again, really depends on the comfort factor. Look, at the end of the day, the captains and the support staff are the ones running the team, right? So once you appoint a head coach, usually the process is to allow the head coach to decide who his team should be. And people will want to take people who they're comfortable with, right? You don't want to mess around with your support system, because that's going to be the heart of the league. So I guess that's why you see coaches appointing some players who they're comfortable with, players with good skill sets, and players who will be able to rally the troops along. So that's very important. Uh, Having said that, it's up to the owners, it's up to the people outside the system to make sure that there's no bias. So as long as there's no bias involved and you're comfortable with what with the team you're working, I think it's totally okay. You don't need that diversity. But if you see some really obvious bias in picks and in terms of selection, then there's a matter of concern. But now these days, look, Gurki, that the fact is your job is on the line. It's a very high pressure job. So people will not risk and take emotional decisions or take decisions with bias. People are all practical. People understand what is required. Ultimately, you're judged on results. So you don't want to end up jeopardizing that. Then your stint will get over in a year or so. It's very easy to change. So which is why I think teams will play smart. As long as if the coach is comfortable with a certain set of people and they have good skill sets, it helps ease decision making. So I'm totally okay with or without diversity, as long as the people are respect each other and people are able to make decisions. If there is a bias creeping in, like I said, I'm sure they will be easily exposed.
Anyway, good to know that, because although I might be asking you from a capacity of a host here, but there are certain teams that all of us support, and we sometimes do feel this when a team isn't doing well or a player is giving extended rope. That is there a certain kind of favoritism that is happening? Because let's face it, I think you can never get rid of it completely, because the sport is such that there have to be some subjective calls. There are, and all captains have it at all levels. You really can't argue against it, because at the end of the day, we say cricket is a captain's game. So who captain feels is going to do the job on a certain day, despite the numbers not backing him up, the captain is very, has his own right to pick that call. So that is why I wanted to ask that can it be addressed if you have diversity? But like you rightly mentioned, if players are not, or if the coach is not comfortable with someone, there is no point to bring that person. You don't want a, a John Buchanan and a Saurav Ganguly kind of a scenario once again, which led to eventually the team having four captains, which also can't really work very well.
The fact is, another aspect which where IPL differs from a lot from other leagues is that it's just a 2-month league, Gurkirat. So you need to understand that people come in end of March, they need to gel and they need to get out by end of May, and for that you can't be trying to sort differences and stuff. So you need to get along with everybody, and that's one of the reasons why people pick the kind of people they pick.
Makes sense.